Imagine you're walking near a swamp, minding your own business, when suddenly, out of nowhere, a creature that looks like an ancient warrior in a prehistoric tank lunges forward with surprising speed. You flinch, barely processing what just happened.
That wasn't some slow, peaceful turtle basking in the sun. It was an armored beast ready for war.
And if you think turtles are just lazy, docile creatures waiting to be flipped onto their backs like helpless furniture, you're in for a rude awakening. Because under that shell, turtles hide a world of violence, aggression, and survival instincts so sharp they've been around since dinosaurs walked the earth. Let's talk about the shell, not the soft, friendly cartoon version where some turtle uses it as a cozy mobile home. No, this thing is a weapon, a biological suit of armor fused to its spine, designed to withstand predator attacks, brutal fights, and sometimes even gunfire. Yes, there have been cases of bullets bouncing off a turtle's shell. But make no mistake, this isn't just for defense. Some turtles have turned their shells into literal battering rams, and they don't just sit back and take hits like medieval castles. They use them to attack. Take the male snapping turtle, for instance. You'd think, oh, it's just a big turtle, no big deal. Wrong. These guys are like living tanks with tempers. They don't just sit there waiting for something to attack them. They actively start fights. When two males meet in the same territory, it's like watching two sumo wrestlers made of bone and muscle try to flatten each other. They charge head first, smashing into each other with a force that would make pro wrestlers jealous. And this isn't just posturing. These fights can last for hours, with neither turtle willing to back down. Their shells scrape against each other with a sound like grinding stone, their jaws snapping at anything that moves. And in some cases, they'll straight up bite chunks out of their opponent's limbs. And if you thought this was just a snapping turtle thing, wait until you meet the giant South American river turtle, a species that looks like it's seen every war in history and is ready to start another one. During the dry season, when food is scarce, males gather in shallow waters and engage in slow-motion gladiator battles. They rise up on their legs, their thick shells pressing against each other, and start shoving like two armored knights locked in battle. If one loses balance, it's over. He gets pushed onto his back, and unless he can flip himself back over, he's at the mercy of predators. And then we have the Galapagos tortoises, which might just be the pettiest fighters in the turtle kingdom. You'd think being giant, slow-moving reptiles would make their battles a little more dignified. Nope, these guys have neck battles. That's right. When two males want to prove dominance, they don't bite, they don't ram. They stretch their necks as high as possible, standing on their tiptoes like awkward kids in a school picture. The taller one wins. That's it. That's the fight. The loser slinks away, defeated and humiliated, while the winner stands there like he just conquered an empire. It's the most ridiculous, yet strangely effective way of proving strength. But here's where things take a dark turn, because sometimes turtles don't just fight for dominance. Sometimes they fight to kill, and the worst offender, the alligator snapping turtle, a creature that looks like it was forged in the nightmares of ancient warriors. These monsters don't just rely on brute force, they use strategy. When a rival turtle enters their territory, they don't go for a simple push or bite. They wait. They stay perfectly still, pretending to be just another rock in the swamp. And then, when the moment is right, they lunge forward with lightning speed, their powerful jaws clamping down on the rival's leg, head, or tail. And once they've got a grip, they don't let go. Their bite force is so strong they can crush bone. If the rival struggles too much, the alligator snapper simply drags them underwater and holds them there, drowning them before ripping them apart. And let's not forget about the painted terrapin, which seems all innocent until you see two males going at it. Unlike the brute force methods of other turtles, these guys go for precision strikes, aiming for soft spots, biting at the edges of their opponent's limbs, and even going for the eyes. That's right. Some turtles gouge out the eyes of their rivals in battle, leaving them blind and vulnerable. Nature is metal, and turtles are some of the most cold-blooded warriors in the game. And then there's the aftermath of these battles. If you thought turtles just walk away unscathed, think again. Some are left with deep scars, missing limbs, or even holes in their shells. And while the shell is tough, it's not invincible. If the injury is bad enough, infections can set in, and a once powerful warrior can slowly succumb to a painful death. But here's where it gets even wilder. Turtles have some of the best natural healing abilities in the reptile world. They can recover from deep gashes, regrow parts of their shell, and in some cases, survive with missing limbs like battle-hardened veterans. There are documented cases of turtles living decades with half their limbs gone, still moving, still fighting, still proving that they are the ultimate survivors. And speaking of survival, some turtles take their fights to the extreme even after death. Picture this. A turtle has just lost a brutal battle, its opponent victorious. But instead of just leaving the body, the winner starts eating it. That's right. Some species of turtles engage in cannibalism, feasting on the bodies of their fallen rivals, like something out of a post-apocalyptic horror film. It's not just about survival, it's about dominance. It's about proving that even in death, a turtle's fight isn't over. So the next time you see a turtle slowly walking across the road or basking on a log, don't be fooled by its peaceful, ancient appearance. Under that shell is a battle-hardened warrior, an armored survivor that has seen more brutality than most predators could dream of. Turtles aren't just slow-moving relics of the past. They are fighters, killers, and survivors of a world far more vicious than we ever imagined. And this was just the beginning. Because what comes next? That's when things really start getting bloody. Imagine you're dangling your hand over a pond, watching the calm, glassy water ripple under the sunlight. You see a turtle floating lazily, its shell covered in moss, looking like an ancient relic lost in time. You think, oh, what a peaceful little guy. Big mistake. Because in the next second, with the speed of a snake and the force of a hammer, that peaceful little guy lunges forward, and before you even feel the pain, your finger is gone. Welcome to the brutal world of turtle bites, where jaws designed by millions of years of evolution can snap bones, sever limbs, and leave scars that last a lifetime. These creatures might be slow on land, but when it comes to attacking, they strike faster than your reflexes can react. And the worst part, they don't just bite, they hold on. Let's start with the undisputed king of terrifying turtle bites, the snapping turtle. With a face straight out of a horror movie and an attitude that screams, "I woke up ready to ruin your day," the snapping turtle doesn't just have a strong bite. It has one of the strongest bite forces in the reptile world, measuring up to 1,000 psi, pounds per square inch. That's more than enough to crush bones, sever fingers, and turn a careless fisherman's hand into shredded meat. The common snapping turtle, which can be found lurking in lakes and rivers across North America, is already bad enough. But if you want to meet a true monster, say hello to the alligator snapping turtle, a prehistoric beast that looks like it was personally designed by the devil. This tank of a turtle can grow up to 200 pounds, its shell covered in jagged ridges that resemble dinosaur armor, and its head so massive it could fit a grown man's fist inside its mouth. But the worst part, it's a liar. Unlike other turtles that actively chase their prey, the alligator snapping turtle plays the long con. It sits completely still at the bottom of murky waters, mouth wide open, looking harmless. Inside that mouth is something devious, its tongue, which has evolved to look exactly like a wiggling worm. Fish see it, think it's an easy meal, and swim right in. And the second they do, bam! Those jaws slam shut with the force of a bear trap, turning the fish into mush. This same technique works on anything dumb enough to get close. Birds, frogs, small mammals, even other turtles. Oh, and if it happens to be a careless human hand, let's just say you'll be leaving the pond with fewer fingers than you started with. So how exactly do turtles generate so much power in their bite? Unlike mammals, which rely on heavy jaw muscles and leverage, turtles have evolved something far more sinister. A skull built like a medieval war machine. Instead of soft tissue absorbing impact, turtles have reinforced skulls, meaning every ounce of force generated by their bite goes straight to their victim. And because they don't have teeth, their jaws have developed razor-sharp edges made of keratin, the same stuff that makes up claws and horns, allowing them to slice through flesh and bone like a living guillotine. But their real secret weapon, the snap reflex. When a turtle bites, it doesn't just close its mouth, it snaps with a recoil effect, generating even more force. It's the same principle as a spring-loaded bear trap, except this trap is attached to an animal that wants to use it. There are many ways to die in nature. You can be strangled, crushed, drowned, or poisoned. But one of the worst, being held underwater by a turtle that refuses to let go. Some turtles, especially snapping turtles and musk turtles, don't just bite their prey, they clamp down and refuse to release. Fishermen have told horror stories of trying to free their hands from a turtle's jaws, only for the turtle to hold on with iron determination. One fisherman in Florida learned this lesson the hard way. After accidentally stepping on an alligator snapping turtle in shallow water, the turtle latched onto his foot and dragged him under. It took 3 other people to pry the turtle off, and by the time they did, His foot looked like a chewed-up steak. Okay, so we know snapping turtles are basically reptilian hitmen, but what about the turtles that look friendly? The ones that people keep as pets? Surely they wouldn't bite, right? Wrong. Take the soft-shell turtle, for example. At first glance, it looks kind of cute. No hard shell, a weirdly squishy body, and a goofy little snorkel-shaped nose. But don't let that fool you. These turtles are lightning fast and have insanely long necks, meaning they can bite you even if you think you're at a safe distance. And their jaws? Scalpel sharp. There are cases of people trying to handle soft-shell turtles, only for the turtle to whip around like a coiled snake and slice them open. Then there's the box turtle, which is usually seen as harmless. But when stressed or threatened, even these little guys can deliver a shocking amount of force. They might not break bones, but they can pierce skin and leave a nasty wound. And don't even get me started on the map turtles, which have some of the strongest bites relative to their size. They're like tiny, angry nutcrackers, capable of breaking through hard shells and even snipping through fishing lines with ease. Turtle attacks on humans aren't as rare as you might think. There are dozens of documented cases of people losing fingers, toes, and even chunks of flesh to these deceptively slow creatures. In one particularly horrifying case, a man in Thailand lost half his hand after sticking it into a pond to feed a massive alligator snapping turtle. The turtle mistook his fingers for food, and with one snap his hand was hanging by a thread. Then there's the urban legend, which actually has some truth to it, about turtles biting off male body parts. It's a favorite scare story among fishermen and swimmers in murky waters. Don't dangle anything important, or you might leave the lake with a lot less than you came in with. So what happens if you ever find yourself on the wrong end of a turtle bite? First off, don't panic. If a snapping turtle or an alligator snapper bites you, do not try to yank your hand away. Their bite reflex will only make them clamp down harder. Instead, submerge the turtle in water if it's not already in water. Sometimes they'll let go if they feel safer. If that doesn't work, grab their tail gently and lift them slightly. In extreme cases, you might need to pry their jaws open with a sturdy object. But be careful, because you could end up making things worse. And most importantly, don't mess with wild turtles. They don't care about your good intentions. They only care about survival. Turtles may look like slow, clumsy relics of the past, but when it comes to bite force and brutality, they are living weapons. And if you ever forget that, they'll be more than happy to remind you with a snap. The illusion of turtles as slow, docile creatures shatters the moment two males lock eyes in a battle for dominance. For most people, the idea of a turtle fight seems ridiculous, something that might involve sluggish shoving or awkward grappling, but in reality, turtle battles are some of the most brutal, relentless, and downright violent encounters in the animal kingdom. These creatures, built like armored tanks, do not rely on speed or agility. Instead, they engage in wars of attrition, using their powerful shells as battering rams, their razor-sharp beaks as weapons, and their sheer determination as a means to utterly destroy their opponents. When two males square off over territory, basking spots, or mates, the conflict is anything but peaceful. It is a savage, bone-crushing event where bites tear through flesh, shells collide like armored wrecking balls, and weaker turtles face the ultimate humiliation, being flipped onto their backs, where survival becomes a gamble against the odds. A turtle's fight begins long before the first attack. There is a process of intimidation, a silent conversation made of posturing, head movements, and body positioning. When a male encounters another male in his territory, he does not immediately strike. Instead, he raises his head high, tilts his shell at an aggressive angle, and begins what could only be described as a cold-blooded standoff. If the intruder does not back away, the dominant turtle will escalate, lunging forward in a show of force, jaws snapping at the air as if to say, "You have one last chance to leave." But if the challenger refuses to retreat, the battle begins, and it is a brutal, merciless, and often bloody affair. The first moments of a turtle fight are like watching ancient gladiators engaging in an armored clash. They do not hesitate. They charge at each other with full force, their shells slamming together like battle rams in an all-out assault. The sound of two heavy shells colliding echoes like stone hitting stone, and it is here that the true nature of turtle combat is revealed. They push and shove, using their sheer body weight to gain an advantage, trying to tip their opponent over or force them into a vulnerable position. Their heads dart forward in quick, vicious strikes, their sharp beaks aiming for the soft, exposed areas of their enemies' limbs, tails, and necks. Biting is not just a scare tactic, it is a deliberate attempt to cause injury. The jaws of some turtles are strong enough to tear through flesh, pierce deep wounds into their rival's body, and even snap off fingers or limbs if they get a strong enough grip. For many species, the ultimate goal of a fight is not just to dominate, but to incapacitate. Some turtles will grab onto their opponent's legs or head with their powerful jaws and begin to twist violently, performing a death roll that can rip limbs straight from the socket. Others will take advantage of their aquatic environment, forcing their opponent underwater in an attempt to drown them. It is a horrifying reality that some turtles do not fight just to win. They fight to eliminate their rivals permanently. There have been documented cases of snapping turtles locking their jaws onto an opponent's shell and refusing to let go, even as their victim struggles to break free. Some fights last minutes, some last hours. And in the most extreme cases, a turtle may be left floating lifelessly in the water after being held underwater for too long. While snapping turtles may be the most notorious brawlers in the turtle kingdom, they are far from the only ones who take combat seriously. The soft-shell turtle, despite its lack of a hard shell, is one of the most vicious fighters in the reptile world. Lacking the armor that other turtles rely on, it has evolved an entirely different combat style, speed and precision. A soft-shell turtle can move with shocking agility, whipping its long, snake-like neck forward with lightning speed, biting deep into its rival's flesh before retreating just as quickly. These turtles do not rely on brute strength. They use their razor-sharp beaks to slice at their enemy's eyes, throat and limbs, causing enough pain and injury to force a retreat. Many fights between soft-shell turtles end with one combatant blinded or severely wounded, left to swim away in disgrace while the victor claims the territory. Then there are the Galapagos tortoises, whose fights look more like an ancient slow-motion duel. Unlike the bite-heavy combat of snapping turtles or the speed-driven strikes of softshells, Galapagos tortoises engage in dominance battles that resemble something out of a prehistoric court case. Instead of charging or biting, they rise onto their hind legs and stretch their necks as high as possible. The one who can extend his head the furthest wins, while the shorter competitor is forced to accept his defeat and slink away. However, if the battle escalates, they resort to full-body shoving matches, using their enormous weight to try and knock each other over. If a Galapagos tortoise loses its footing and falls onto its back, it may never be able to right itself, and unless another tortoise helps, it will slowly succumb to dehydration and death. Fights in the turtle world are not simply a matter of dominance, they are a test of survival. A losing turtle is not only humiliated, but often left with severe wounds that make it vulnerable to infection and predators. Some turtles lose limbs, chunks of their shell, or even their ability to move properly after a particularly brutal battle. In extreme cases, a wounded turtle may become so weakened that scavengers and predators take advantage of its injuries, ensuring that defeat in combat often means death in the long run. However, turtles are also among the toughest survivors in nature, with the ability to heal from severe wounds over time. Some turtles have been found missing legs or sporting cracked shells from previous battles, yet they continue to thrive. Proof that even in the aftermath of war, turtles remain some of the most resilient creatures on Earth. The aftermath of a fight is often a grim scene. The dominant turtle, victorious, remains in his territory, basking in the sun like a king surveying his domain. The defeated, if he is lucky enough to survive, limps away, bloodied and beaten, forced to find a new home where he can recover or risk further attacks. And in the most ruthless of cases, the battle ends with one turtle floating lifelessly in the water or left overturned, struggling helplessly against fate. The turtle world is one of ancient, methodical violence, where survival depends not just on strength, but on resilience, cunning, and the willingness to fight until the bitter end. For a creature often stereotyped as slow and harmless, turtles are among the most cold-blooded warriors of the animal kingdom. They are living proof that armor alone does not make a survivor. It is the willingness to fight, to endure, and to crush the competition that ensures their place in the wild. The next time you see a turtle peacefully basking on a rock, remember, he isn't just sunbathing. He is resting after battle, a veteran of countless wars fought in the silent, ruthless world beneath the water's surface. And the scars he carries? They are the marks of a survivor. The ocean is full of mysteries, and we're just getting started. If you're loving this deep dive into the wildest corners, the murky waters of a swamp are a world of deception. Beneath the surface, shadows lurk in absolute stillness, waiting, calculating, blending into the dark, muddy depths like ghosts of an ancient past. There are no warning signs, no sudden movements. just a deceptive calm before the ambush. And when it happens in the blink of an eye. Turtles are not the first creatures that come to mind when people think of apex predators, but that's because most people don't know the truth. Some turtles are masters of stealth, deception, and lightning-fast execution, equipped with a predatory toolkit that would make even the most feared assassins jealous. From alligator-snapping turtles that lure fish into their doom like swamp-dwelling sirens, to soft-shelled turtles that strike with surgical precision, these creatures prove that patience is a predator's most terrifying weapon. Deep in the still waters of southern swamps, a creature that looks like a prehistoric nightmare lies in wait. The alligator-snapping turtle is a living fossil, a 200-pound monster of pure muscle and armor that has survived unchanged for millions of years. Its shell, jagged and ridged like a chunk of living rock, is built for deception, covered in algae and mud, so that it looks like just another piece of the swamp floor. Its massive head, broad and stone-like, barely moves. It is the definition of patience. And then there's the tongue. A fleshy pink appendage sits at the back of the turtle's mouth, wiggling like a helpless worm in the water. To an unsuspecting fish, this is a free meal, an easy snack floating right in front of them. But what they don't realize is that this meal is a trap. The moment a fish swims close enough to take a bite, the alligator-snapping turtle's jaw explodes shut like a bear trap. There is no escape. The turtle's bite force is a staggering 1,000 psi, strong enough to crush bone, shatter shell, and completely obliterate anything caught between its jaws. A fish caught in this death grip doesn't struggle for long because there is no struggling when your body is instantly crushed into paste. The turtle doesn't need to chew. It swallows its prey whole, its meal vanishing into the abyss before the water even has time to settle. And here's the terrifying part. This method works on everything. Fish, frogs, birds, and even small mammals make the mistake of going for the worm. Some unlucky waterfowl have been seen paddling too close, dipping their heads into the water only to be dragged under in a single violent lunge. Even other turtles aren't safe. Smaller species that get too close have been found inside the stomachs of these swamp-dwelling executioners. But perhaps the most chilling part of the alligator-snapping turtle's hunt is its patience. Unlike other predators that chase their prey, this turtle does not move. It does not need to. It can sit completely motionless for hours, even days, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. It is the definition of a swamp assassin, silent, hidden, and utterly lethal. While the alligator-snapping turtle relies on deception and brute force, soft-shell turtles are a completely different breed of killer. They do not have the alligator snapper's armored bulk or crushing jaws, but what they lack in brute strength, they make up for in speed. These turtles are lightning-fast ambush predators, attacking before their prey even realizes they were in danger. With long, snake-like necks and incredibly sharp jaws, soft-shell turtles are designed for quick surgical strikes. They don't wait for prey to come to them. They launch themselves forward with shocking speed, whipping their heads out to seize fish, frogs, and even small birds in a fraction of a second. They don't crush their prey like snapping turtles do. Instead, they slice, sever, and rip. Their beaks are razor-sharp, capable of slicing through flesh and bone like a scalpel. Soft-shell turtles hunt with a strategy that can only be described as predatory efficiency. Instead of relying on brute strength, they stalk their prey like silent assassins. They bury themselves under sand and mud, leaving only their periscope-like nostrils exposed. Their flat, smooth bodies make them nearly invisible, perfectly blending into the swamp floor. A fish swims by, oblivious. A frog lands a little too close, unaware of the lurking danger beneath it. And then, with explosive speed, the turtle strikes. Unlike the slow-motion movements of their hard-shelled relatives, soft-shell turtles are shockingly quick. One moment they are hidden, the next they have snapped up their prey and disappeared back into the sand. If the victim is too large to swallow immediately, the turtle whips its head back and forth violently, tearing its meal apart piece by piece. For an animal that is so often seen as harmless, the soft-shelled turtle's ferocity is genuinely terrifying. It does not hesitate. It does not play with its food. It kills with precision and then vanishes back into the murky depths, leaving nothing behind but a swirl of blood in the water. These turtles are not just opportunistic feeders. They are ruthless killers, thriving in an ecosystem where patience and ambush tactics mean the difference between eating and starving. They have evolved perfectly to dominate their environments, using deception, speed, and power to take down prey with surgical efficiency. The alligator-snapping turtle is the executioner of the deep, waiting in total stillness, luring victims into its deadly trap with a tongue that lies better than any con artist. The soft-shell turtle is the silent assassin, buried under the mud, waiting for the perfect moment to launch a lightning-fast attack, severing its prey with the precision of a trained killer. Both are masters of stealth and deception, proving that in the world of turtles, being slow does not mean being weak. These creatures hunt with intelligence and lethal precision, turning swamps and rivers into their personal killing grounds. And next time you find yourself near a quiet, still pond, take a moment to look into the water. If you see nothing, be very, very afraid, because that's exactly how these turtles want it to be. The moon hangs low over the beach, casting silver light across the endless stretch of sand. The tide crashes rhythmically, a lullaby for the creatures of the night. The scene looks peaceful, even beautiful, but make no mistake, this beach is about to become a battlefield, a stage for one of nature's most brutal and unforgiving survival tests. Beneath the sand, movement begins. Tiny, fragile bodies push and squirm, breaking free from their delicate shells. Their time has come. These are turtle hatchlings, freshly born, eyes barely open, limbs barely functional, and yet they already know what they must do. Run! Because out there, waiting in the darkness, are dozens of predators, each eager to rip them apart. The moment a baby turtle breaks free from its egg, the countdown begins. The clock is ticking, and the odds are horrifically stacked against them. Hatchlings emerge in groups, instinctively racing toward the ocean with an urgency that can only mean one thing. They know they are being hunted. They don't stop to stretch, they don't wait for their siblings, and they certainly don't take in the view. They have one job and one job only: make it to the water before something makes a meal out of them. But that job, almost impossible, because lurking in the darkness are creatures that have been waiting for this moment all year. Birds perch in the trees, scanning the sand for movement. Crabs skitter along the beach, their claws clicking in excitement. Raccoons, foxes, and even feral dogs sniff the air, drawn by the scent of fresh meat. And as soon as the hatchlings make their first desperate scrambles toward the ocean, the massacre begins. Seagulls are the undisputed aerial death squad of the baby turtle world. Their beady little eyes are locked onto the sand, waiting for just a hint of movement. The moment the first hatchlings break the surface, the birds descend like winged executioners. With horrifying accuracy, they pluck up hatchlings in their beaks, shake them violently to break their tiny necks, and then swallow them whole. Some don't even bother swallowing right away. They drop the squirming babies from high in the air, letting gravity do the dirty work before casually swooping down to eat the remains. Pelicans, frigate birds, and herons join the feast, stabbing at the sand, ripping hatchlings from their path, and swallowing them whole before they even realize what's happening. Within seconds, dozens of baby turtles have already been wiped out, and they haven't even made it halfway down the beach. If a hatchling manages to evade the aerial assault, there's no time to celebrate, because now the killers on the ground come into play. Ghost crabs, seemingly small and harmless, transform into ruthless predators when hatchlings appear. Their claws snap eagerly as they grab unsuspecting turtles, dragging them backward into burrows where they disembowel them alive. Some crabs don't even bother pulling them underground. They slice open their soft bellies right on the sand, feasting on their insides while the hatchling flails helplessly. Raccoons and foxes patrol the dunes, using their sharp noses to sniff out entire nests before the hatchlings even emerge. They dig frantically, pulling up eggs, crunching through shells, and eating the young before they've even had a chance to hatch. Some even develop a taste for fully emerged babies, chasing them down, pinning them under their paws, and devouring them piece by piece. By now, most of the hatchlings are already dead. The few survivors, the lucky ones, are just feet away from the water. But survival is still far from guaranteed. A hatchling that makes it to the waves might think it's safe. After all, the ocean means freedom, right? A place to disappear, to escape the nightmare of the beach? Wrong, because the second their tiny flippers hit the surf, new killers take over. Waiting just beyond the shore are hungry fish, stingrays, sharks, and even fully grown sea turtles that have no issue making a meal out of their own kind. Yes, cannibal turtles exist, and baby turtles are an easy bite-sized snack. Barracudas and groupers lunge from below, swallowing hatchlings in a single gulp. Manta rays glide through the shallows, sucking up anything small enough to fit into their gaping mouths. Even jellyfish claim victims, their tentacles entangling tiny turtles, slowly paralyzing them before digesting them alive. And let's not forget the ever-patient octopus, a creature that needs no chase. It simply waits beneath the sand, extending a single tentacle as the hatchlings swim past, wrapping them up like a horrific underwater embrace. For the ones that survive all this, the ocean is still an endless battlefield. They must grow fast, avoid predators, find food, and somehow make it to adulthood. The odds: less than 1 in 1,000. The numbers seem horrifying, but there's a brutal reason behind it. Turtles have always played the numbers game. Female sea turtles lay hundreds of eggs per season because they know that almost none of them will survive. It's a reproductive strategy designed to ensure that at least a few make it to adulthood. If every hatchling survived, beaches would be overrun with turtles, throwing entire ecosystems into chaos. Nature has no sympathy, no mercy. Every creature is fighting to survive, and the massacre of hatchlings is just part of the cycle. But for those few who do survive, the ones who avoid the birds, the crabs, the foxes, the fish, and the currents, they will grow into something unstoppable. A turtle that survives to adulthood is a tank of an animal, a living relic of prehistoric resilience. The same predators that once hunted them will become nothing more than minor annoyances. And one day, after years of wandering the open ocean, they will return to the very same beach where they were born. And when they do, they will dig into the sand, lay their eggs, and start the cycle of carnage all over again. The world of turtles is often painted as one of slow, peaceful existence, a life spent basking in the sun, lazily drifting through the water, and occasionally nibbling on a leafy green snack. But beneath that seemingly serene exterior lies a dark, brutal truth. Turtles, despite their ancient wisdom and hardened exteriors, are not above eating their own kind. They do not recognize family ties. They do not show mercy. They do not hesitate. Given the right circumstances, they will turn on their siblings, their young, or even fellow adults, ripping apart shells, devouring flesh, and erasing any sense of kinship in the most horrifying way possible. Cannibalism in turtles is not a rare event. It is not some freak anomaly. It is a calculated, deliberate act that happens when hunger strikes, competition flares, or weakness is exposed. Some turtles eat the young of their own species to eliminate rivals before they grow strong enough to challenge them. Others hunt down injured or dying members of their kind because a free meal is a free meal, no matter where it comes from. And then there are the worst of them all, the ones who don't need to eat their own, but do it anyway. Because why not? Among the worst offenders in the world of turtle cannibalism is the snapping turtle, a creature already infamous for its bad attitude, relentless aggression, and bone-crushing bite. These prehistoric-looking monsters do not hesitate when given the chance to consume another turtle. In fact, snapping turtles have been known to actively hunt smaller turtles, using their raw power and speed to overwhelm their unsuspecting victims. A snapping turtle's method of attack is as brutal as it is efficient. It does not waste time chasing prey across the water. Instead, it lurks beneath the surface, perfectly still, waiting for the moment to strike. Smaller turtles, often juveniles who have not yet learned the dangers of their world, swim by, unaware of the horror waiting below. And then, with explosive force, the snapper lunges, clamping down with a bite that feels like being caught in an industrial vice. Once the jaws close, there is no escape. The snapping turtle doesn't just kill, it destroys. With one brutal crunch, it shatters the shell, reducing it to fragments as if it were nothing more than brittle wood. The victim, still alive, struggles, flails, but it is already too late. The snapper does not simply eat its prey piece by piece. It often drags the body under, drowning it first, before leisurely tearing it apart, consuming the flesh, organs, and even parts of the shell. If it cannot break the shell immediately, it will bite off the head and limbs first, ensuring that its meal will not escape while it works on crushing the rest. This is not a rare behavior. Snapping turtles have been observed killing and eating their own kind repeatedly, particularly in areas where food is scarce. Hatchlings that fall behind in their frantic dash to the water often never make it to the ocean because their own relatives are waiting for them. If a younger snapping turtle is struggling, its own species will see it as an opportunity rather than a life worth sparing. In many species, hatchlings face a terrifying reality from the moment they emerge from the egg. Their own siblings might be the first predators they encounter. While escaping from the nest, a baby turtle's first thought should be to reach the ocean. But sometimes, another hatchling stands in its way. In these moments, it is not uncommon for a desperate or aggressive hatchling to turn on its own brother or sister, biting at exposed limbs, tearing into soft flesh, and even killing them outright. Some hatchlings are born slightly stronger or slightly larger than the others, and in the ruthless world of survival, even the smallest advantage can mean the difference between life and death. If that advantage means devouring a weaker sibling, so be it. Scientists have recorded hatchlings consuming pieces of their unhatched siblings, cracking into their eggs before they even have a chance to emerge. This horrific act is not a mistake. It is a strategy. A hatchling that consumes another gains instant strength, absorbing the nutrients that would have belonged to their rival. It is a gruesome but effective shortcut to survival. And this is not just limited to sea turtles. In freshwater environments, where nests often hatch in enclosed spaces with limited access to food, the first instinct of some baby turtles is to eliminate competition immediately. They know that survival will be difficult, and they cannot afford to let others slow them down. Some hatchlings will even chew on the tails or legs of their siblings while they are still alive, crippling them before moving on. Even when turtles make it to adulthood, the nightmare never ends. Injured turtles, those that have lost limbs to predators, gotten caught in human debris, or simply grown too weak to defend themselves, often find that their own kind has no sympathy for them. A weakened turtle in the wild is a free meal. Others of its species will swarm it like vultures, biting into soft tissue, tearing into exposed flesh, and devouring it piece by piece while it is still alive. This isn't some cold, calculated survival instinct. This is raw opportunism. And for some turtles, it is not just the weak that are targeted. It is anyone who gets in their way. Some species, such as river turtles, have been observed engaging in acts of unprovoked cannibalism, attacking smaller turtles seemingly for no other reason than sheer aggression. A larger turtle will bite at the shell, repeatedly ramming its victim against rocks or logs, breaking the armor until the smaller one is too injured to move. Then, in an act of complete brutality, the victor begins eating the other turtle alive, not out of necessity, but simply because it can. Cannibalism in turtles is not an accident. It is not a last resort behavior. It is a common, calculated act that happens in nearly every turtle species on the planet. But why? What makes a turtle turn into a shell-eating psychopath? The first and most obvious reason is hunger. Turtles are survivors, and when food is scarce, they do what they must to stay alive. If that means ripping apart another turtle, so be it. A turtle's body is full of nutrients, flesh, organs, and calcium-rich bone. A perfect high-energy meal that is simply too good to pass up. But hunger alone does not explain everything. Competition plays a massive role. In environments where turtles live in high densities, resources become limited. Food, basking spots, and territory are all in constant dispute. In these situations, taking out a rival does more than just provide a meal. It eliminates competition. By removing another turtle from the equation, the victor secures more resources for itself. And then, of course, there is the ugliest reason of all: aggression. Some turtles are just born killers. Some individuals display a level of aggression that goes beyond necessity, attacking and eating others even when food is available. This behavior has been particularly noted in male-snapping turtles, who will sometimes kill and consume smaller males simply because they entered the wrong territory. The world of turtles is not one of peaceful coexistence. It is a world of survival, dominance, and bloodshed. A turtle does not care if another turtle is its sibling, its offspring, or its own species. If an opportunity arises, it will take it. And when hunger strikes, no shell is thick enough to stop the inevitable. So next time you see a turtle basking peacefully in the sun, remember, behind that calm exterior, there is an ancient predator waiting for the right moment to strike. And if the situation demands it, its next meal might just be one of its own. Don't be a landlubber. Hit that subscribe. The ocean isn't going to explore itself. Turtles have spent centuries being labeled as slow, dumb, and unremarkable creatures, a biological afterthought, surviving only because of their armor rather than their wits. They're often compared to other reptiles like snakes and crocodiles, but while those animals are seen as cunning hunters or masters of survival, turtles, they get dismissed as walking rocks. But what if everything we thought we knew about turtle intelligence was completely wrong? What if, under that tough shell, lies a brain capable of problem-solving, memory retention, and even emotional recognition? The truth is, turtles are far smarter than people give them credit for. They may not be building civilizations or solving complex math equations, but in their own quiet, calculating way, they have developed intelligence that helps them outmaneuver predators, navigate vast distances, recognize individuals, and even learn tricks like trained dogs. Forget the idea of turtles being nothing more than armored sloths. These creatures are survivors, thinkers, and in some cases outright geniuses of the reptile world. One of the most underestimated aspects of turtle intelligence is their ability to escape from seemingly impossible situations. While most people assume turtles rely purely on their shells for protection, many species have developed incredible problem-solving skills to evade danger. Take the painted turtle, for example. In experiments, scientists have observed these turtles learning to navigate mazes, push objects aside to access food, and even recognize escape routes within unfamiliar environments. In captivity, some turtles have been known to figure out how to climb out of their enclosures, stacking objects or wedging themselves against corners to push their way up. Some species have even been recorded using tools, a behavior once thought to be exclusive to mammals and birds. And then there's the spotted turtle, which has been observed memorizing escape routes after just a single exposure. Unlike other reptiles that rely purely on instinct, spotted turtles seem to remember complex environments, retracing their steps and recognizing barriers with ease. In one study, a group of these turtles was placed in a large tank with multiple exits. Within minutes, they identified the fastest way out. Weeks later, when placed back in the same setup, they immediately took the correct path, proving they retained the information long after the initial test. For an animal often written off as slow-witted, that's an impressive display of memory and problem-solving. Predators assume that turtles are easy prey, slow, predictable, and incapable of outsmarting their attackers. But some turtles have evolved to flip the script, turning their intelligence into a survival tool. The box turtle is one such trickster. Most people know that box turtles have a hinged shell that allows them to completely seal themselves inside. But what many don't realize is that they don't always use this as a first line of defense. Instead, they engage in bluffing and misdirection, waiting for just the right moment to confuse their predator before escaping. For example, if a raccoon or coyote gets too close, a box turtle will often stretch its legs and neck out as far as possible, making itself look much larger than it actually is. This sudden change in size can startle smaller predators, buying the turtle time to scuttle away before the real attack happens. If that fails, the turtle doesn't immediately close its shell. Instead, it waits for the predator to make a mistake. If the attacker gets frustrated and looks away, even for a second, the box turtle makes its move, darting into a hole, under a log, or even into water to escape. And then there's the musk turtle, a creature that has turned psychological warfare into an art form. If threatened, the musk turtle doesn't try to fight. It simply releases a disgusting, foul-smelling liquid from its scent glands, making the predator think it is already spoiled. The scent is so bad that most predators immediately drop the turtle and leave, convinced they have picked up a rotten meal. It's a defensive strategy based entirely on deception, and it works almost every time. These are not the actions of a mindless animal, relying purely on luck. These are the strategies of an intelligent survivor. One of the biggest misconceptions about turtles is that they are completely unsocial, unemotional creatures that operate purely on instinct. But studies have revealed something surprising. Turtles can actually recognize individual humans, form associations, and even show signs of learning behaviors based on social interactions. Pet turtles, for example, have been known to distinguish between different people, reacting positively to owners who feed and interact with them regularly, while showing indifference or even avoidance towards strangers. Some species, like the red-eared slider, can even learn to associate certain sounds, hand signals, or visual cues with feeding time, a trait more commonly seen in mammals than in reptiles. In a study conducted with red-footed tortoises, researchers tested whether these animals could learn from watching others. One tortoise was trained to push a colored disc in exchange for food, while a second tortoise observed. When the second tortoise was given the same task, it mimicked the first tortoise's actions almost perfectly, proving that turtles are capable of observational learning, a cognitive ability once thought to be exclusive to intelligent mammals and birds. If turtles were truly as simple-minded as many assume, they wouldn't have the ability to recognize individuals, learn behaviors through observation, or respond differently to various human interactions. Their intelligence may not be as obvious as that of a dog or a crow, but it is undeniable. Perhaps the most fascinating display of turtle intelligence is their ability to memorize vast distances and navigate across entire oceans or continents. Sea turtles, in particular, have an astonishing internal GPS system, allowing them to travel thousands of miles and return to the exact beach where they were born, even after decades. This navigational ability isn't just instinct. It's a learned behavior that relies on memory, environmental cues, and even the Earth's magnetic fields. Researchers studying leatherback and loggerhead turtles have found that these animals can recognize ocean currents, water salinity, and even the specific magnetic signatures of different coastal areas, allowing them to pinpoint their exact location even after traveling through unfamiliar waters for years. Some have been shown to return to their birth beaches with astonishing accuracy, proving that their memory and learning capabilities are far beyond what we once believed. For years, turtles have been dismissed as slow and simple-minded, but the evidence tells a different story. They are problem solvers, they are escape artists, they are strategists, social learners, and navigators capable of memorizing landscapes on a scale humans can barely comprehend. Their intelligence isn't flashy, it isn't obvious, but it is real. And the next time you see a turtle sitting there staring blankly at the world, ask yourself this: is it really just sitting there doing nothing? Or is it watching you, calculating, remembering, waiting for the perfect moment to prove you wrong? Turtles are often seen as symbols of wisdom, patience, and longevity. With their slow, deliberate movements and ancient lineage, they seem like creatures of peace, harmless, even friendly. But hidden beneath that hard shell and slow demeanor is a biological hazard that can turn deadly. Most people assume that the worst thing a turtle can do to a human is bite off a finger, but the real danger isn't in their jaws, it's in their bacteria-ridden bodies and toxic flesh. Turtles are walking biohazards, carrying lethal diseases, parasites and poisons that have hospitalized and even killed people. Some are biological time bombs, loaded with bacteria that can cause horrific illness with just a single touch. Others contain deadly toxins in their flesh, causing seizures, paralysis, and even death in those foolish enough to eat them. The truth is, turtles aren't just armored survivors, they are silent, unsuspecting killers. If there's one thing turtles are infamous for among health professionals, it's salmonella. You know, that nasty bacteria that can turn your stomach into a war zone, leaving you with violent diarrhea, fever, and vomiting that feels like your insides are trying to escape your body. The worst part? Turtles don't get sick from it. They just carry it everywhere. Unlike other animals that might contract salmonella occasionally, turtles are long-term hosts. It lives in their intestines, on their shells, even on their skin. They are natural reservoirs of this nasty bacteria, and they spread it without even trying. The moment you touch a turtle, you could be transferring millions of microscopic killers onto your hands. And if you make the mistake of rubbing your eyes, scratching your face, or, God forbid, eating something before washing your hands thoroughly, you might as well have licked the floor of a public restroom during flu season. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, CDC, has repeatedly warned against keeping pet turtles, especially small ones, because they are one of the leading causes of reptile-related salmonella outbreaks in the world. In fact, in the 1970s, the US banned the sale of pet turtles under 4 inches because kids kept putting them in their mouths and then ending up in the hospital with gut-wrenching bacterial infections. Despite the ban, outbreaks still happen regularly, with cases of severe illness, kidney failure, and even deaths linked to handling pet turtles. But turtles don't just spread salmonella through direct contact. Their tanks, water bowls, and even the areas they walk on can become biohazard zones, contaminating entire households. It's why pet turtles have been repeatedly labeled as unsuitable pets for young children, the elderly, or anyone with a weak immune system. 1 second, you're admiring your cute little shelled friend, and the next, you're curled up in a hospital bed, hooked to an IV, praying for the diarrhea to stop. If touching a turtle can make you sick, eating one can straight up kill you. Turtle meat is consumed in various cultures, often seen as a delicacy or even a medicinal food. But what many people don't realize is that some turtles are walking toxic waste dumps, storing poisons in their flesh that can turn a meal into a death sentence. One of the most notorious cases of turtle-related poisoning is chelonitoxism, a bizarre and unpredictable condition caused by consuming certain species of sea turtles. The effects are terrifying. Nausea, vomiting, muscle weakness, loss of coordination, seizures, and in extreme cases, complete organ failure. Unlike bacterial infections, this isn't something you can cook out of the meat. The toxin is embedded in the turtle's body, and no amount of heat will save you. Chelonitoxism outbreaks have been reported in Africa, Asia, and the Pacific Islands, often affecting entire families or communities. Because there's no way to tell if a turtle is toxic just by looking at it, people unknowingly consume poisoned meat, leading to mass hospitalizations and even deaths. Some of the worst cases involve children dying after eating just a small amount, their nervous systems completely overwhelmed by the toxins. Scientists still don't fully understand what causes chelonitoxism. Some believe that certain species of turtles absorb toxic compounds from the jellyfish and algae they eat, while others theorize that bacteria in their guts produce the deadly poison. Whatever the cause, one thing is certain: turtle meat is a game of Russian roulette, and the consequences of losing can be fatal. While salmonella and poisonous meat are well-documented threats, some turtles have additional defenses that make them even more dangerous. Take the leatherback sea turtle, for example. This gigantic, deep-diving reptile has a diet primarily made up of jellyfish. Over time, it accumulates natural toxins from its prey, making its flesh potentially poisonous to humans. There have been reports of people suffering from hallucinations, vomiting, and extreme dizziness after eating leatherback meat, as if they had been poisoned by jellyfish themselves. Then there's the hawksbill sea turtle, a beautiful but highly toxic species. The hawksbill feeds on sponges, many of which contain potent toxins. When consumed by humans, hawksbill meat has caused severe neurological symptoms, including paralysis and temporary blindness. In some extreme cases, entire villages have suffered mass poisoning events after unknowingly eating hawksbill turtles caught in their fishing nets. And if that wasn't enough, some freshwater turtles secrete toxins through their skin, acting as living chemical weapons. The giant musk turtle, for instance, releases a foul-smelling toxic liquid from glands near its shell when threatened. This secretion isn't just disgusting, it can cause severe skin irritation, nausea, and even temporary respiratory issues if inhaled in large amounts. It's nature's way of saying, "Touch me and you'll regret it." For an animal that is often associated with longevity and resilience, it's ironic that turtles have such a long history of killing the very creatures that admire them. While they themselves can live for over a century, the humans who handle or consume them often don't get the same luxury. The same animal that has been used in myths and folklore as a symbol of endurance and patience has, in reality, sent thousands of people to hospitals, graves, or into nightmarish hallucinations. Whether through their bacteria-ridden bodies, their toxic meat, or their ability to secrete chemical defenses, turtles have ensured that they remain one of the few creatures that can fight back against humanity without even lifting a claw. And the next time you see a turtle and think about picking it up, petting it, or, God forbid, eating it, remember this: it might be the last mistake you ever make. You've seen the depths, the danger, and the unbelievable secrets of the ocean, and there's so much more to explore. Hit subscribe now so you never miss a single episode of Marine Planet's most thrilling documentaries.